Hello guys and welcome back to TechWolf. In this video we are going to build another network. We are going to build a network like this. And this I guess is already 7th tutorial. I will check. This is 7th tutorial in this Packet Tracer course. As you can see guys, if you are interested to take full course, you can go here. It's absolutely free. You can check out Cisco Packet Tracer full course where we are discussing Cisco Packet Tracer for absolutely beginners. And like I mentioned, we are going to build this virtual local area network. And for those who doesn't know what's the difference between local area network and virtual local area network, the only difference is that one big local area network, for example, imagine your school, or for example one big office building where are lots of computers, let's say 100 or 200 or 300 computers. You are spreading these computers into smaller networks, smaller local area networks. But at the very beginning, this whole building with all these 500 or 300 computers, depending on how big is the organization, this could be considered as one big local area network. But in real life we are creating virtual local area networks, and the main purpose is to separate these devices into smaller networks. For example, this local area network on the right could be for one classroom, this local area network could be for another classroom, and there might be other small local area networks. But as we are spreading out or separating one big local area network for that organization, which belongs to that organization, into these smaller local area networks. All this together is called virtual local area network. And in this tutorial we will be building the simplest virtual local area network, where we will use only one router, which you can see here in the middle. And this one router will be separating local area network into smaller local area networks, and this will make this one big local area network to virtual local area network. So on the left hand side we will have one local area network where we will have a switch, where we will have 3 computers, and we will also add a wireless access point, so mobile device or mobile devices can also connect to this local area network. And on the left hand side we will also add a switch to the same router, and we will add to this switch 3 computers. So no further ado, let's get into it and let's build this network. And we will start by adding devices to our workspace. And let's start by network devices. Click on network devices, and here at the bottom make sure that you are in routers. Click into the routers and select router 1941 and put it in the middle of this workspace. And let's click again onto the network devices and click on switches in the second tab, and let's select this switch 2960 and let's put it on one side of this router, and let's select another router 2960 and let's put it to the other side of this router. And now we need end devices. Click here in the first tab, end devices, and here select PC and place one PC, and similar way place another, and similar way another PC. On the right hand side we will also add 3 PCs. And now we will add access point here near this switch, because we will be connecting access point to this switch, so it is in the same local area network. To add the access point we also need to go into network devices, select wireless devices in the second tab, and here select this WRT 300N and place it somewhere here, and this is wireless access point. And now let's connect all these devices, and to do that click in the left bottom corner on connections and click on copper straight through cable. Let's start with switch. Let's click on switch. Let's add Ethernet 1. And Ethernet 1 we will connect to our first PC. Do exactly the same. Click on copper straight through cable. Again click on switch. Click on fast Ethernet 02 and click on this PC 1 and click fast Ethernet, and the same for third one. Click on switch, click on fast Ethernet 3, click on this one, and now let's do exactly the same. Let's click on this copper straight through cable, let's click on switch. Let's add it to port 4 and let's click on this wireless access point. As you know, wireless access points are also connected by physical cables. Now let's do exactly the same on this other network. Let's click on copper straight through cable, click on this switch, fast Ethernet 1. Let's click on this first device, fast Ethernet 0, and let's add also both of these other devices to this switch. and device, and let's add it. And now let's connect these switches to this router. And now let's connect this router to the first switch. So let's use for first network gigabit Ethernet 00, and let's connect it also to gigabit into Ethernet 01 on switch. And let's connect exactly the same way the second switch to the router. Also let's take copper straight through cable. Let's click on router, gigabit Ethernet 01, and let's click on switch, and let's connect it also to gigabit Ethernet 01. As you can see, there is no connection established between switches and between routers. And why it is, I will tell you a little bit later. But before we continue, let's add also this wireless device. So click here on End Devices in the left bottom corner, and here on the right, let's select smartphone. If you scroll a little bit to the right, and here you will see this fourth option from the right hand side, smartphone. Click on smartphone and add it here somewhere above access point. Also established connection between the access point and between this smartphone. And now before we continue, let's configure IP addresses and subnet masks for all of these devices on this network. But before we do it, I will add nodes of IP addresses which I will be assigning to all of these devices, so we can visually see which device is which and what IP address it has. So to add nodes, click here on nodes at the very top, and here for this smartphone we will add IP address 192.168.1.5. Then click under the first PC, which is PC 0 in our case, and let's add IP address 192.168.1.2, and then click under the second, which is PC 1. Again, let's add node 192.168.1.3, and let's click under the fourth device or the third PC, which is PC 2 in our scenario, and let's add a note that this device's IP address will be 192.168.1.4. Now we also need to add an IP address at the router, and router will have two IP addresses, and router's IP address will be 192.168.1.1. And now let's add IP addresses for all these devices. The IP address 192.168.2.2. PC4 will be IP address 192.168.2.3, and PC5 will be 192.168.2.4. And the router's IP address here for this other network, which is on the right hand side, we will have IP address of 192.168.2.1. And now once we have added these labels or these nodes for all these devices, we need to do actual configuration of these IP addresses for all of these devices and add subnet masks. Let's start with smartphone. Let's click on smartphone. And let's click into the desktop and let's click IP configuration, and here we also will be adding this IP address, and here we click on static, and here where it says IP address, let's add this IP address, which is 192.168.1.5, and if we click on subnet mask, it will be populated automatically, and close this. And now let's do exactly the same for this PC 0, which is PC 1 in this network. Let's click on it, let's click on desktop, let's click IP configuration, and let's here add 192.168.1.2, and let's click into subnet mask, and subnet mask will be automatically populated. I will actually copy this IP address so it's easier to add for other two devices. Let's close this down, let's click on this second PC, which is PC 1, let's click on desktop. Let's click IP configuration, let's paste it here, and let's change 2 to 3, and let's click into subnet mask, and subnet mask is populated. And now let's click into this third PC, which is PC 2. Let's click on desktop, IP configuration, and here we also paste in, and here we change 2 to 4. So IP address is 192.168.1.4, and click into subnet mask, and subnet mask will be populated. And let's close this down. So this network on the left hand side is now assigned with IP addresses and subnet masks, and similar way let's do with devices on the right hand side. So let's click on PC3, let's click into the desktop, IP configuration, and let's add IP address of 192.168.2.2, and I will also copy this so it's easier to add to other devices, and subnet mask populated automatically. Let's close this down. Let's click on second device, and here we also click on desktop, click on IP configuration. Let's add IP address, which will be 192.168.2.3. Let's click into subnet mask so it is also populated, and let's click into this last third device. Click in desktop, IP configuration, and let's add its IP address, which is 192.168.2.4. And let's click into the subnet mask. So subnet masks and IP addresses are now added to all of these devices. But here we also need to configure IP address for this router. So let's click into the router. Let's click into the config. Here in config, in configuration, in future videos I will show you how to configure these IP addresses on router using CLI, but as these are only starting tutorials, guys, I am going to show you how to do it with this user interface or UI, as here I am trying to explain you or want you to understand what is really happening behind the scenes and how this network works. So here, as you remember, we connected this one switch from this network, which is to the left hand side, to the port gigabit Ethernet 00. So we need to add this IP address 192.168.1.1. As you can see, this is one network, as it is 168.1, and this network which is on the right hand side, this is already with IP address 192.168.2, not 1. So these are two different networks. And here on gigabit Ethernet 00, let's click into it, and here we need to add IP address, and here we need to enable firstly this port. As you can see, port status, currently it is off. If we check mark this very first field, it will enable it. And here, as you can see, IP configuration, here IP4 address, this is where we are adding this IP address, which is 192.168.1.1. And here's the same for this router on the gigabit Ethernet 2. We connected this other switch. Let's click into it, and here we also port status is currently not on, but if we need to check mark, so this is on. And here also IP configuration, we need to add this other IP address, which is 192.168.2.1, and then we can close it down. And now, as you can see, as we added these IP addresses to router, it physically connected these two networks. However, these two networks are still not connected and they still don't see each other. And as a proof, I will click on this very first device, which is PC0 in our case. Let's click into it. As from previous videos, you already know how to check the network connectivity with other devices. And now let's open a command prompt, and in command prompt let's try to ping, for example, this phone, which IP address is 192.168.1.5. ping 192.168.1.5 and hit enter. And here you can see that we are able to ping this phone because it is on the same network. So as we will be able to ping any other devices which are connected to this switch and which are on this side of this router. But if we from this will try to ping, for example, this device which is PC3, let's see what will happen. So let's type in ping 192.168.2 and .2 and hit enter. And you will see that it is not able to ping it. Request timed out. Let's close this down. And now for those who doesn't know why this network is still not able to ping this network, the reason is that if you are on local area network or devices are on one local area network, they can communicate with each other if they are on the same subnet and they are assigned with the same IP range. But if they want to connect to another network, networks are being connected by using routers and IP addresses. As you can see here, we are using router to connect to networks, and the networks are being connected based on IP addresses of these networks. As you can see, we are connecting this network which is on the left hand side, which IP address is 192.168.1.1, with network which is on the right hand side, which IP address is 192.168.2.1. But they are not able to connect because when you are connecting from any of these devices, then this is a gateway address. In this scenario, our gateway address which should be assigned to these devices is 192.168.1.1. So let's check whether this phone has a gateway of 192.168.1.1. As these devices on this side, if they want to connect to another network through router, they need to communicate to the router. And all devices on some particular network, they are communicating with router with gateway address, or they must have assigned gateway address. So let's click again on the smartphone. Let's click into IP configuration and let's have a look at what gateway it has. As you can see, currently it's default gateway which has been assigned automatically when it was using DHCP is 192.168.0.1. So it is not connecting or not communicating to this router. So we need to change this default gateway address so this mobile device is able to reach out through this router to the other network by using router's IP address, which is 192.168.1.1. So it should end not with .0.1 but with .1.1. And let's close this down. And now let's again click on this mobile phone. Let's click on command prompt, and from this mobile phone again let's try to ping this other device which is 192.168.2.2. So let's type in ping 192.168.2.2 and hit enter. As you can see, pinging is still not taking place, and this is probably because of the reason that this device with IP address .2.2 it also doesn't have a gateway assigned of this router. So is from this side it has to be exactly the same. This device, which is PC3 in our scenario, it should have a gateway address of this router which is 192.168.2.1. So let's click on this device, let's click on IP configuration, and here we can see that here default gateway is 4 zeros, so let's delete it, and also let's assign 192.168.2.1 and let's close this down. And now let's click again on this mobile phone, let's click in command prompt, let's again ping this device with IP address 192.168.2.2 and let's hit enter. And now you can see that these two devices are able to communicate. However, if we will try to ping from this smartphone, for example, or from any other of these devices, the device with IP 192.168.2.3, let's do it. Let's ping .2.3. You will see that they will not be able to communicate. As you can see, pinging, it is trying to ping, but it is not able to ping. So here you understand one important thing, that all devices which are on some particular network, for example on this side, they have to have a gateway address of this router to be able to communicate to any other network which is outside this particular local area network. Meanwhile, they can communicate to each other, but they can't communicate outside if they don't have a gateway address. So now let's configure gateway addresses for all of these devices. Let's open this PC0, which in our case is our first PC. Let's click on IP configuration, and here also let's add default gateway address, which is 192.168.1.1, which is this router's IP address. As you can see, in any network which is local area network, if you want to communicate outside that particular network, they have all the same gateway, default gateway address. So I will copy it, I will close this down, I will open this next device, click on IP configuration, and also will assign 192.168.1.1, close this down, and our fourth device or third PC, and click on IP configuration, and also will assign this default gateway and close this down. And now these four devices, they are able to reach out, but they are still able to reach out only to this device. And we can check it by clicking on this second PC, which is in our scenario third computer, PC2, and click on command prompt, and here we type in ping, and let's ping this very first device which is at the very top, which is 192.168.2.2 192.168.2.2, and let's hit enter. And as you can see, pinging is happening. This means that this PC2, it is able to communicate with this PC3 on this other network. But if we will try to ping from this PC2 again PC4, you will see that nothing will happen with IP address which is 192.168.2.3. Hit enter, and here you can see that request timed out and we are not able to communicate not to this device or not to this device. And the reason is exactly the same, because we assigned gateway address to this PC3, but we didn't do it for this PC4 and we didn't do it for this PC5. So let's click on PC4, let's click into IP configuration, and also let's assign this IP address which is 192.168.2.1. And I will copy this IP address, I will close this down, and I will click on the last PC, IP configuration, and also the same gateway. Let's add it there, guys, and let's close this down. Now again, let's click on PC2 and let's try to do the same pinging of these two devices. Let's open command prompt. Now let's start with 192.168.2.3, which is this PC in our scenario, and hit enter. And now you can see that we are able to ping or communicate with this device. And now let's do exactly the same for device 192.168.2.4. And let's click enter, and here you go, guys, we are able also to communicate with this device. So now we have built a network with one router, with two switches, with one wireless access point, and with one wireless device which is smartphone, and 3 computers on one side and 3 computers on the other side, and they are able to communicate to each other, and we did some troubleshooting. So yes, guys, this is it for this video. In this video I tried to demonstrate you the very basic virtual local area network and how it works, and why we are having gateway addresses, and why we have IP addresses, and why we need each network to be separated into different networks. And routers also usually have 2 IP addresses, which are usually gateway addresses. From one side that could be like ISP or internet service provider, if that would be internet, which we will be looking in further videos when we will be discussing NAT tables. But in local area networks, those are usually private addresses which are connected from both sides of the router, as you can see here in our scenario. So yes, guys, if you found this video useful, leave a like, share this video, and see you in the next one.